Have we, in our relentless quest for novelty and progress, overlooked the one constant, the one enduring truth that might explain everything that came before and illuminate everything that is yet to come? Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a vast, silent landscape stretching back through unimaginable eons. Picture the slow, inexorable turning of geological ages, the rise and fall of mountains, the creeping expansion and retreat of ice, the patient evolution of life in countless forms, each a fleeting whisper in the grand, indifferent symphony of the cosmos. Consider the myriad creatures that have walked this earth, each driven by instinct, bound by the undeniable laws of nature, living out their cycles of birth, survival, and death in a continuous, unbroken chain. Now, within this immense panorama of time and existence, locate a single point, a moment when something profoundly, fundamentally different emerged. Not just a new species, another link in the chain, but something that seemed to stand apart, to possess a quality that transcended the purely biological. Something that looked at the stars with wonder, that asked why, that dreamed of things that were not, and built things that had never been. Was this emergence merely another predictable ripple in the cosmic pond? Or was it something else entirely? An event so singular, so unexpected, that it demands a different kind of understanding, a different way of seeing the story of everything. This is the profound puzzle we begin to untangle, the quiet mystery we will explore, guided by the unexpected insights found within a remarkable book titled The Everlasting Man. G.K. Chesterton, a man as large in personality and intellect as he was in physical stature, invites us on a sweeping journey through history, not as a dry recitation of facts and dates, but as a vibrant, often surprising narrative. His goal in The Everlasting Man is ambitious: to offer a corrective lens to the prevailing historical and philosophical narratives of his time, particularly those that sought to explain away the unique phenomenon of humanity and the figure of Christ through purely materialistic or evolutionary frameworks. He doesn't just want to tell us what happened, but to explore why it matters and what it reveals about that enduring question. Have we overlooked the one constant truth? Chesterton begins his exploration not with Adam, but with the Australopithecus, not with the Garden of Eden, but with the caves. He takes us back to the very beginnings of what we understand as human history, examining the evidence left behind, the cave paintings, the tools, the burial sites. But he looks at this evidence with a peculiar, almost childlike sense of wonder, stripping away the layers of academic jargon and preconceived notions that can often blind us to the obvious. He challenges the simplistic notion that early man was merely a slightly more advanced animal, driven solely by the same instincts as his primate cousins. He asks us to look at those cave paintings, the vivid depictions of bison and horses, the strange, almost mystical figures. Are these merely the idle scribbles of a creature concerned only with its next meal? Or do they speak of something more, a sense of beauty, a desire for meaning, a connection to something beyond the immediate struggle for survival? Chesterton argues that these early artistic expressions are evidence of something fundamentally different in the human creature: an imagination, a soul, a capacity for symbolic thought and spiritual yearning that sets him apart. He uses a powerful analogy. Imagine digging up the artifacts of a long-lost civilization. You find tools, weapons, perhaps remnants of dwellings. These tell you something about how they lived. But then you find something else. A small carved figure, an intricate piece of jewelry, a wall covered in painted images. These things, Chesterton suggests, speak of a different order of needs, a different dimension of existence. They are not strictly necessary for survival, yet they are universally present in human cultures from the earliest times to the present day. This, he argues, is the signature of the everlasting man, the creature who not only lives but reflects on living, who not only exists but contemplates existence. This contemplation, this capacity for wonder and meaning-making, is directly linked to that initial question. Have we overlooked the one constant truth? Chesterton suggests that this constant truth is not a scientific formula or a historical inevitability, but something inherent in the very nature of humanity itself, a spiritual dimension, a yearning for something beyond the material. He sees this reflected in the universal human impulse towards religion, myth, and art. These are not mere byproducts of social evolution, he contends, but fundamental expressions of what it means to be human. Chesterton then turns his gaze to the great civilizations of the ancient world. He examines the Egyptians, the Babylonians, the Greeks, and the Romans. He doesn't dismiss their achievements. Indeed, he marvels at their complexity and sophistication, but he also points out their limitations, their inherent contradictions, their ultimate inability to fully satisfy that deep human yearning. He sees in their myths and philosophies a sense of searching, a grappling with the big questions of life and death, good and evil, but often without finding a complete or satisfying answer. He uses another striking analogy, comparing the pagan world to a beautiful but incomplete statue. It is a magnificent work of art, displaying incredible skill and vision, but it lacks a vital element, a finishing touch that would bring it fully to life. The pagan world, in Chesterton's view, had glimpses of truth, moments of profound insight, but it was ultimately unable to fully grasp the whole picture. It was, in a sense, waiting for something more. This brings us to the second, and perhaps more controversial, part of Chesterton's argument in The Everlasting Man. Having established the unique nature of humanity, the creature with a spiritual dimension and a yearning for meaning, he then turns his attention to the figure of Jesus Christ. And here, Chesterton is not interested in presenting a dry theological treatise. Instead, he approaches the story of Christ with the same sense of wonder and intellectual curiosity that he applied to the cave paintings and the ancient myths. He asks us to consider Christ not just as a historical figure, but as a phenomenon. He challenges the prevalent tendency to explain away Christ as merely a good teacher, a wise philosopher, or a mythical construct. He argues that such explanations fail to account for the sheer impact of this one life on the course of human history. He points to the radical nature of Christ's teachings, the unprecedented claims he made about himself, and the utterly transformative effect he had on his followers and, through them, on the world. Chesterton employs one of his most famous and insightful analogies here, the idea of judging Christianity by its saints, not its sinners. He argues that any institution should be judged by its highest aspirations and its most successful examples, not by the failures of those who claim allegiance to it. He suggests that the lives of the Christian saints, with their extraordinary acts of love, self-sacrifice, and moral courage, are a testament to the power and truth of the faith they embraced. They are, in his view, the full flowering of that initial human potential, guided and empowered by something truly divine. He also tackles the common criticisms leveled against Christianity, particularly those related to its perceived contradictions and complexities. Chesterton, with his characteristic wit and paradox, argues that these very contradictions are often a sign of its truth. He suggests that a truly profound truth will often appear paradoxical to our limited human understanding, much like looking at a complex object from different angles reveals seemingly contradictory aspects. He uses the analogy of a key and a lock. Christianity, with its doctrines and mysteries, might seem complex and even counterintuitive at first glance. But, Chesterton argues, when you apply it to the lock of human experience, when you use it to understand the complexities of the human heart, the paradoxes resolve and everything fits into place. It unlocks a deeper understanding of ourselves, of the world, and of that persistent question: have we overlooked the one constant truth? For Chesterton, that constant truth is not just the existence of a spiritual dimension in humanity, but the ultimate fulfillment of that dimension in the person of Christ and the reality of God. He sees Christianity not as just another religion among many, but as the culmination of all the world's yearnings and searches. It is the answer to the question that humanity has been asking since those first hands traced shapes on cave walls. Chesterton's narrative is particularly compelling because he doesn't just assert these claims. He builds his case through a sweeping survey of history and human nature, constantly drawing unexpected connections and revealing hidden patterns. He points to the way in which Christianity, unlike many other philosophies or religions, embraced both the material and the spiritual, the human and the divine. It didn't seek to escape the world, but to redeem it. It didn't despise the body, but affirmed its goodness. It didn't deny the reality of suffering, but found meaning and hope within it. He contrasts the Christian understanding of God with the often remote and indifferent deities of paganism. The Christian God, as revealed in Christ, is a God who enters into human history, who suffers alongside his creation, who loves unconditionally. This personal, immanent God, Chesterton argues, is a radical departure from the abstract or even capricious gods of earlier belief systems. And this, he suggests, is precisely the kind of God that the human heart, in its deepest longing, has always been searching for. Chesterton also delves into the historical impact of Christianity, arguing that it was the driving force behind many of the positive developments in Western civilization, from the abolition of slavery to the development of universities and hospitals. He doesn't shy away from acknowledging the failures and hypocrisies of Christians throughout history, but he maintains that these are deviations from the core message of Christianity, not a reflection of its inherent nature. He returns to his analogy of judging by the saints, arguing that the true spirit of Christianity is best seen in the lives of those who most fully embodied its teachings. One of the most striking aspects of the everlasting man is Chesterton's ability to make familiar stories feel fresh and new. He approaches the Gospels not as sacred texts to be revered from a distance, but as historical documents filled with extraordinary and often perplexing events. He asks us to consider the miracles, the claims of resurrection, the radical forgiveness offered by Christ, not as impossible myths, but as events that, if true, would fundamentally alter our understanding of reality. He uses the analogy of a detective examining a crime scene. The evidence might seem contradictory or inexplicable at first glance, but a skilled detective looks for the pattern that makes sense of all the disparate clues. Chesterton suggests that the life of Christ, when viewed without the colored lenses of skepticism or dogma, presents a pattern that is best explained by the radical claims he made about himself. He also explores the enduring appeal of Christianity throughout history, its ability to adapt to different cultures and time periods, and its continued relevance in a modern world that often seeks to dismiss it. He argues that the reason for this enduring appeal is precisely because Christianity speaks to those fundamental human needs and yearnings that we identified at the beginning of our journey. The need for meaning, for hope, for forgiveness, for a connection to something larger than ourselves. Returning to our initial question, have we overlooked the one constant, the one enduring truth? Chesterton's answer, woven throughout the rich tapestry of the everlasting man, is a resounding yes. He argues that in our rush to embrace new philosophies and scientific paradigms, we have often overlooked the most obvious and perhaps the most important truth of all: the unique nature of humanity, created in the image of a loving God, and the historical reality of Jesus Christ as the fulfillment of humanity's deepest longings and the answer to its most profound questions. He concludes his work not with a dry summary, but with a powerful affirmation of faith, a call to see the world with fresh eyes, to recognize the extraordinary in the ordinary, and to embrace the adventure of believing in something that transcends the purely material. He suggests that the story of the everlasting man is not just a history of the past, but a story that continues to unfold in the present, a story in which each of us has a part to play. In a world that often feels fragmented and uncertain, a world grappling with questions of identity, purpose, and meaning, Chesterton's The Everlasting Man offers a compelling and surprisingly relevant perspective. It challenges us to look beyond the surface, to question the prevailing narratives, and to consider the possibility that the most profound truths are not the most complex or obscure, but often the ones that have been there all along, waiting to be rediscovered. It is a book that rewards careful reading and thoughtful reflection, a book that can spark new insights and deepen our understanding of ourselves, of history, and of that enduring, haunting question: have we overlooked the one constant, the one enduring truth that might explain everything? Chesterton, with his unique blend of wit, wisdom, and unwavering conviction, makes a powerful case that this truth is not some abstract philosophical concept, but something profoundly personal, something that walked among us and something that continues to shape the world in ways we are only beginning to understand. And so, we end our journey through the everlasting man with a renewed sense of wonder, a deeper appreciation for the richness and complexity of human history, and perhaps, just perhaps, a new perspective on that initial question that guided our exploration. Chesterton invites us not to a passive acceptance of dogma, but to an active engagement with the evidence, a willingness to see the world as it is, full of both beauty and brokenness, and to consider the possibility that the story of humanity is not just a tale of evolutionary struggle, but a grander, more mysterious, and ultimately more hopeful narrative. A narrative centered around the enduring presence of the everlasting man and the even more everlasting truth he points towards.